Right, welcome back to the Vengacast. Today, the roles have reversed, and I will be the one talking to Joe, who is the host.
Yeah, hello.
And we'll be previewing the Green Bay Packers 2019 season, starting off with looking at the free agency, and then looking at the draft, and then going through game by game for the Packers fixtures to see what Joe thinks will happen this season. Does that sound all right to you?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
So first, we'll start off with the free agency. No big players necessarily have left. So we'll just talk about the ones coming in. Some big names.
That's fine.
One of the most controversial, you could say, and in my opinion, the biggest signing for the Packers so far is Adrian Amos from the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
So what's your kind of overall thinking on this? Obviously, coming from the Bears, division rivals, could be an interesting one. I thought he was very good last season. So what's your opinion on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we needed a strong safety. I think that was probably one of our priorities going into this. We probably still need another safety to go alongside him, but it's good that we've finally got a good, reliable one in who's probably going to start every game if he stays healthy for it. You go on.
It was probably one of the, in my opinion, one of the best safeties last year. Had a great season in that Chicago defense. Is it? Do you feel it will improve the defense massively for you?
Yeah, I mean, I just feel our secondary is just getting so much better now. Obviously, we've already got Jay Alexander back there, who has had an incredible rookie year, and we have we have a few different players. We've got Jackson, who could move to safety. I'd maybe quite like to see how he does there, because he didn't have the best years at cornerback. But I don't know. I definitely think Amos is just a quality addition. I mean, 73 tackles last year. He even got a sack as well and 2 interceptions. Obviously, part of that sort of league lead and Bears defense. I think it would probably be between them and Ravens, who had the best defense last year. I just think, obviously, bringing them from the Bears, it makes it so much better that we're taking someone from who we're going to be competing with. So we're not just strengthening our team, we're weakening theirs.
Yeah, and also you mentioned the Ravens having a very good defense. You also brought in Zadarius Smith, the linebacker from the Ravens, who had a very good year as well, just like Amos. What's your thoughts on that one as well?
Yeah, I know you were saying before you think Amos is sort of like the most notable signing that we've made. I would probably argue that Zadarius is, just because that was probably our main priority, sort of like that outside linebacker position. And I don't know, I mean, like you said, part of that Ravens defense, last season he had 45 tackles, 8.5 sacks, and a forced fumble as well to go along with it. So, he's more than proved himself that he deserves that massive payday that he's getting. I mean, he signed a contract for 4 years and $66 million, which is
a lot.
He's not cheap.
That's more than Amos. I'm pretty sure. I think Amos is a 4-year deal to $37 million or something.
Yeah, exactly. So it just shows how important he was to getting a player like that.
Yeah, and do you think the linebacker was a position he needed?
Oh yeah, definitely. That's why we got 2. I'm sure we'll go on to the other one in a bit.
Yeah. Well, talk about that now. Another Smith coming in, Preston Smith. Another linebacker, obviously, as we've mentioned. He's what do you think of him coming in as well? I think he's another great signing for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, all 4 of these signings were made on the same day. I think it just showed we just wanted to go out early and get our business done, because we haven't signed it. We literally signed all our players on one day, and we haven't signed anyone else. Yeah. But I think Billy Turner is probably not as good as Zadarius Smith, but just another good player. Not Billy Turner, Preston Smith. I think he's just another good player. He's still a good linebacker, obviously. That's why we brought him in. But I think it was just important to get more than one of them in, because that really was a position that was weak, especially in terms of sort of like depth. So to have 2 really good linebackers now, it's just sort of refreshing to see, because I'd say for years now the defense has been our problem, and it'll be really interesting to see what Mike Pettin can do with this year.
Yeah, personally I thought it was much needed to get in these players for you guys, because you have come off the back of quite a poor season. and I definitely think these players can help you compete more with the division. Like, do you think they will help to kind of compete with the Bears at the top of the division, or obviously also Detroit and Vikings also looking like they could be good as well?
Yeah, I would probably say our division will be the toughest in the NFC for sure. I think it's the closest in the NFC.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's just because I think you could probably argue we've had a good off season, like really good off season. I think the Lions, you could argue, have had the best off season of like every team in the league.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Making some huge signings there, some like massive like holes were filled for their team this year. But I don't know. I think like players like even Preston Smith, who isn't like the highest profile player we've brought in, he got like 4 sacks last year, 53 tackles, and this was on a poor sort of like Washington team who didn't have a good season either, I would say.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm pretty impressed with him. I mean, we played Washington this year, and against us, he had a really good game. I was sort of impressed by him then. I think our defense, like I say for years, like I think the reason most people like me from the UK who were getting into NFL, I think, definitely at the time I got into them, maybe not now, but we were one of the best offenses in the league, probably one of the most exciting to watch. And
yeah, I agree.
I think you realise you can't just win games with an offense only. You need that defense to back it up as well, which is why teams like, when you look at the Rams last year and the Patriots have had it for years, you need that mix. Maybe if it sometimes you risk not as good of an offense just to make sure you've got that defense, because, you know, as the old saying goes, defense wins championships at the end of the day. And I do think improving this defense as a whole will be a massive part to us competing with. Yeah, I'd probably agree with you. I think the Bears are going to be the team to beat in our division still, despite them losing quite a few players on defense, as well as Vic Fangio.
Yeah, I agree with that. Then also moving on to the fourth signing you've made this season in Billy Turner. He's he's an O lineman, isn't he? From the Broncos. He signed a 4-year deal, I believe, for $27 million.
Yep, sounds right.
What do you think of that? Give a bit of protection as well to Rodgers, which could be useful.
Yeah, I mean, last year Rodgers only threw 2 interceptions, I think, but that's because he's like really smart with his throws. But he just honestly had so little time in the pocket, especially last year. You know, it's just when you've got a quarterback in his prime like him, and I think his legacy definitely deserves more than one ring. I just think we have to
definitely,
we owe it to him to give him the players around him to make sure he can play at his best. I think we should have got a signing like this in a lot sooner. It's probably the lowest profile signing out of all the ones we've got, but it could
be the most important.
It could turn out to be the most important, because hopefully, like assuming there's no injuries and Billy Turner plays at his best, Rodgers could just have such an easier time this season than what he did last year.
Definitely, yeah. I'd say overall, with the free agency, I think you definitely had one of the best free agencies. As you were saying, a player like Rodgers deserves more than one ring. And with a new coaching and some very good defensive players in, I think it'll definitely be an improvement. How do you feel? Do you think the kind of all the free agents coming in will impact the season, like, and help you get playoffs, or do you think you need more than that?
Well, I know Brian Gutekunst, who's obviously with GM, he came out with a statement after we signed all these free agents saying, like, we're Green Bay, we're always in win now mode. So it's obvious that the club's aim is to get playoffs.
Yeah,
but
straight away, yeah.
There's a fact, like, obviously I want playoffs. Like, everyone wants playoffs, but
yeah, definitely.
Trying to be realistic about it, it's completely a brand new era at Green Bay. We've lost, this year, like, Nelson's retired, TJ Lang's retired, we've lost Calais Matthews, we've lost Cobb. You know, all these players who got me into the Packers have, like, left. Like, I think it's the first time, really, I've noticed, like, this is really, like, a changing of the guard. Obviously, McCarthy's gone, we've got LaFleur in. I'm really excited to see how he can do, but I think we needed for him to have a big free agency. So, like, just to show to him, like, You might be young, you might be new, first time head coach, but we've got all the faith in you.
And you did mention the couple of players that did leave. So we'll just touch on that quickly. With, I'd say, the biggest names being Randall Cobb and Clay Matthews. Do you think you should have tried to re-sign them, or do you think it was right to let them go because they are both kind of veterans of the game?
Yeah. I think Matthews, I'd maybe have liked to seen retire in Green Bay, but if there was a team I wouldn't have minded them going to after he left, would have been the Chargers or the Rams, because I know he's from LA, so it's nice that he's finishing he's finishing his career in his hometown, really. And I do think it was right to let both of them go. Not the biggest fan of Cobb going to the Cowboys out of all the teams, but I just think, like I was saying, it's like a new era, and if we're going to commit to a new era, we've got to fully commit to it. We can't just sort of half let some of these players go and then go for it and set out a statement.
I agree. Clay Matthews, talking about him going to most likely an LA team. He did tweet a picture of him in a LA Rams uniform. So, I mean, that looks like it's likely to be them.
No, he's signed for the Rams. Like, it's definite now.
So what was that? I think.
He's a Rams player now. He signed for them the other day.
Yeah. Well, so overall, just looking at the free agency, how do you kind of rate it out of 10 and among the other teams? Because I definitely think you guys have had one of the best free agencies out of all the 32 teams.
Yeah, I mean, I'd definitely put the top 5, maybe 4, being realistic about it. I think there's still a few gaps there, but we've made the most out of the money that we have. And it'll be exciting to see how we do in the draft. I mean, probably the only teams I'd put ahead of are maybe the Lions, the Raiders, and the Jets. I think they're probably the 3 teams that maybe done better than we, but last year, what was the Colts rated in free agency?
We were rated the worst and ended up being one of
probably
the best. So,
so you never know, do you? We'll have to wait and see.
Yep. So moving on to the draft. 30th pick in the first round, so 2 possible chances to get
12th and 30.
Yeah. So 2 possible chances to get in some very good players and really bolster that team. So we'll start off with the 12th pick. I've got a few mock drafts up here, so I'll just talk about some of the names mentioned.
Okay.
So for the NFL kind of experts, who are Charles Davis, Chad Reuter, Peter Schrager, and Lance Searlin, they've gone. 2 of them have predicted Ed Oliver, who's a defensive tackle from Houston, and the other 2 have said Hawkinson, I want to say, who's a tight end from Iowa. So, what do you think of those players? Would you be happy with them? Talking about, we'll start with Ed Oliver first. What do you think a defensive tackle is something you need?
Yeah, I would probably say that's our biggest priority in the draft. And I think Ed Oliver's an absolute monster. Like, yous have seen, obviously I've taught yous outside of this, and yous know I would love him here. He's just an absolute animal. I think when we were looking, was it his 4-cone drill or something? That was quicker than Barkley's. He's a defensive tackle. And it's just ridiculous.
He's a very good player.
He's just he's like a top athlete. That's how you probably just describe him. He's just so athletic. And I don't know. He just seems like one of them players who, a bit like Barkley last year, he just seems too physically strong just to pass up on if he's available.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think that's the only problem with this. I just have massive doubts about him being available at 12.
Yeah, that is true.
But I think if he does fall to 12, we can't pass up on him. We have to take him.
Yeah, so much changes as well. These, I don't think any mock draft will be fully correct. Anything can happen. So it'll be interesting to see if he's taken before you. But I mean, I agree with you. If he's not taken before you, it He'll be a great player to get. I've just got up another mock draft, and that's got him going third. So I mean,
third, yeah,
so it can change a lot. But if you could get him, that's a great pick. What about what's your thoughts on potentially tight end and Hawkinson?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of debate this year about the two Iowa tight ends and which one's really better out of Hawkinson and Fant. And I don't know. Personally, I think I would probably rather have Fant. As weird as that sounds, although most people have him sort of as the weaker of the two.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just sort of think, to me, from like what I've seen of them, like watching them both, what Fant just seems more of like what we need. I don't know. It'd be a weird one. I mean, personally, I would be happier with either because we do need a tight end. I mean, Jimmy Graham was, if we're going to be honest, very poor last year. Yeah. Nowhere near what we thought he would be. Mm-hmm. I just think any tight end I would take. And I think I do agree we should take one in the first round. We should take either a tight end or a wide receiver. Mm-hmm. We should definitely make the most of all these sort of defensive players in like a lot of depth. And there'll be good defensive players available in the second, third round, and so on. So I think definitely, maybe not with 12th pick, but the 30th pick should definitely be used on either a wide receiver or a tight end, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're talking about kind of the 30th pick. These mock drafts have, well, 3 of them have you taking a wide receiver. 2 of them thinking AJ Brown, and the other one Riley Ridley. Mm-hmm. If you could take a wide receiver, what would be like your number one choice?
Yeah, well, like I was saying, I would probably take a wide receiver at 30. Mm-hmm. The only time I would use the 12th pick on a wide receiver is if DK Metcalf fell down and definitely. Ed Oliver had already been taken. Mm-hmm. Because similar there, Oliver, I think DK Metcalf is too much of an athletic freak to pass up on. Definitely. I think if you pass up on him, he's one of them players where it could come back to haunt you quite quickly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially if you're coming up against them that year.
Yeah, well, something like that. It just shows how like a good combine can be.
I was going to say, yeah, he was probably the winner of the combine.
Definitely, yeah. Before I even saw mock drafts like the Colts even taking him at 26, and he's gone to like a top 10 kind of player, DK Metcalf. So
yeah,
he's obviously. It looks like he could go before your 12th pick. Another player mentioned with this 30th pick is Jonathan Abram. I want to say from
Jonathan Abrams.
From Mississippi State. Safety, I believe.
Like I was saying before. Like I was saying before, we need a safety to go alongside Amos just to keep improving that secondary as much as we can. I think Pett improved last year that if we give him good players in that sort of secondary position, then he can really make the most out of them. I just think looking at what he done with Alexander in his rookie year, I would definitely have faith in him sort of improving the 30th pick sort of safety. I would like to see either Abrams or maybe even I think Adley in the second round if we could maybe pick up him. But I don't know. I would be happy definitely with a safety, but I think if I was sort of picking that 30, like what you were saying before, did you say AJ Brown and Riley Ridley?
Yeah, those were the 2 mentioned.
Yeah, I think if everyone else who I've mentioned was off the board, I would probably rather take one of them 2 with the 30th pick than a safety, because I do think we can get a good safety in the second or third round.
Definitely.
Whereas I think only the elite wide receivers will be available in the first round.
Yeah, I agree with that. So, kind of looking at the draft, kind of overall, if you could have your ideal, like kind of realistic 12th pick and 30th pick, who would you like realistically want? Like which players?
Yeah, ideally, and assuming they haven't been picked yet, I would probably go Ed Oliver and Noah Fant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then
I'd be very happy with that.
Yeah, and then would you maybe use second round or later rounds for a wide receiver, or would you?
Then I would probably go. Yeah, I'd probably go second round wide receiver, third round as safety.
Yeah, I agree. So obviously, a lot can change though, and be interesting to see who could potentially kind kind of drop down as far as your 30th pick.
Yeah, because there's always someone, isn't there? I remember
Yeah.
last year, no one thought that. Or who's the Charger safety?
Derwin James.
Yeah, Derwin James. He
Mm-hmm.
just fell so much further than what most people thought,
Yeah,
and
and he's
he
been
really made
a
everyone
great
regret it.
season. Yeah, so much can change. The combine itself has just changed so much, and there's still a bit of time for a lot to change before the draft, and there's always surprises as it happens as well.
It's not just the combine as well; it's like pro days. Like, look how much Daniel Jones, the quarterback,
yeah,
he had a really good.
Drew Lock
Yeah,
as well.
Drew Lock
has
as
been
well.
very good in the pro days.
Most people sort of have Drew Lock being better than Dwayne Haskins now, who he was sort of seen as like the main quarterback before.
Yeah, it's
like
crazy.
Combines and that had happened.
Yeah, it's crazy how much can change. But obviously, there's so much each team does so much to kind of look at each player. So it's kind of impossible for people from the outside to predict it too much. But it'll be very interesting.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to touch on with the draft?
I was just going to say, I know usually in the draft, what we like to do a lot of the time is maybe move ourselves back a bit and pick up a draft pick for the next year. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if we maybe traded away the 30th pick, I'd say, and picked up another first rounder for next year instead, because I do know we'd like to do that quite often. Mm-hmm. So it's just maybe something to look out for. Maybe a team who'd want to move up into the first round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Well, one of these mock drafts also had you trading with the Texans to go down to number 23 and take Fant, which actually would probably work out for both teams. Means you'd probably have a lot.
Who did have the Texans taken at 12?
No, they would. The Texans would move. It would be the 30. So it'd be your 30th pick. That would.
Oh, so we'd move up.
You'd move up, yeah. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
Down to 20, and Texans would. This has Texans taken Bradbury, the offensive lineman.
Okay.
So it will still work for both teams.
Yeah.
And it obviously gives you a much bigger chance.
I would be for
option.
that. I would be for that if it meant we were guaranteeing that we'd get a good tight end.
Yeah.
I would definitely be willing to do that.
Mm-hmm. I think it'd work out for both teams because I still feel Texans would still get their man at 30.
Yeah, I think. So of a sleeper pick who we haven't mentioned as well, who I'd quite like to take at 12 if Edelbar's already gone. Brian Burns from Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
I really like him. I don't know. Just something about him. He just seems like the sort of player who will just thrive in the NFL, and it won't take him long to get used to it. I just think his physicality will just get straight into the league.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just really like to see him.
Yeah.
Maybe be at Green Bay.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Is there anything else with the draft you want to mention, or shall we move on?
No, I think that's fine with the draft.
Yeah. So we'll just talk about your games now. Looking at your schedule for next year.
Yeah.
So you've got all your divisional teams home and away. You also play at home. You play the Panthers, the Broncos, the Raiders, the Eagles, the Redskins, and on the road we'll have the Cowboys, Chiefs, Chargers, Giants, and 49ers. So we'll just start off with the divisional rivals first. We'll talk about possibly the hardest game and the first game of the season against the Bears. What are your thoughts with kind of coming up against the Bears, who had a great season last year?
Yeah.
Obviously, you could say they've weakened a bit, but will still, I think, be definitely kind of the team to beat in your division.
Yeah.
And also with the first game of the season, it'll be very big. So what's your kind of thoughts on the first game of the season?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think that first game especially against the Bears at Soldier Field, I just hope that all the pressure's on them to sort of retain last season. I just think we need to go into that with the sort of mindset of, look, this is a fresh start. Like, they've lost their defensive coordinator. We've got their best safety from last year. Well, but I'd say their best safety from last year. And I don't know. I just think we just need to sort of prove that we're better than them early on. I think if we can win that game, then that's sort of a huge statement. I know last year, obviously, we beat them first game, and then it just sort of went downhill from there.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's just a new team. We've improved, especially in defence.
Yeah, I think also, especially with kind of the attention this game is going to get, and how big it is, I think winning this game could be very important for kind of the motivation, and also starting off strong in a very kind of big kind of game to start the season.
Well, I mean, for Matt LaFleur, literally for your first game as head coach, for it to be the game that's kicking off the NFL's 100th anniversary in the oldest and biggest rivalry that the NFL has on primetime TV in the first game of the season. I just hope that he's ready for that.
Yeah,
I don't know. A lot of pressure might get to him, but I'm hoping he seems quite a cool character from what I've seen of him so far.
Yeah, I think he'll be able to kind of not get involved into all the kind of hype around it and media. He just needs to try to set out the team really and act as if it's a normal game.
Yeah, I think if we are to win this game, I think they're sort of saying if we do draft an edge rusher, I think this is the perfect game for them to sort of come into, because I think the Bears have quite like a weak quarterback, probably one of the most average in the league. And I'm just being honest, I think that they do. I don't rate them at all. And I don't know. I think if you can get on Trubisky, I think he crumbles. I remember, I know the Pro Bowl is not really much to go on. He obviously done it in the season as well, but I don't think I'll ever forget how hilarious that sort of interception was in the Pro Bowl. He just threw it straight at the defender. It was like he was literally just aiming for them directly in front of them.
Yeah, talking about Trubisky, you could say that one of his better parts as a quarterback last season was his scrambling under pressure and passing, kind of on the run. So it'll be interesting to see how he deals with the potential pressure that you might give him.
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to him throwing an interception to Amos and Amos picks up on it. That'll be an excellent return.
I'll be all for that. That'd be quite an incredible moment, I think, with Amos.
That's what we all need to see. It's what we're all hoping for, secretly.
Yeah, well, definitely you.
Yeah. I mean, I'll probably be the only one staying up for that. It'll start at like 3 a.m. here.
I think I'm going to stay up. I think it's a game you can't miss. Anniversary as well. It's going to be quite some game. Kind of talking about that game, and also the Bears, obviously, both games, and kind of in the season in general. If you were to edge the Bears, what do you think it would be like?
Like the difference?
What's the difference?
I just think last year, I know when we played the Bears, we just made so many stupid mistakes, especially in the game at Soldier Field. And I know it was like a miraculous comeback, the home game last year, but we did have a shocking first half, absolutely dreadful. And I think that was sort of when people looked at the Bears defense and were like, "Oh, like this is a real force to be reckoned with." And I just think now we have a defense to match. Not as good yet.
Yeah.
But it's so much better than what it was last year, and I just think it's sort of like we're just closer to them. Like it's just going to be more even, and I think ultimately we have the better quarterback. So I think as long as the offense does the job, then I just think it's up to the defense to sort of prove that they're like players like Zadarius Smith and Amos. They just need to prove that they're getting the money that they deserve and put in the performances when it matters in the big games like this. Because I honestly think that first game might be the biggest of the season.
Well, definitely, yeah. I think I agree. I think your offense might be the turning point in this game if Rodgers can find his rhythm and you can break down that Bears defense. Then I feel like your defense will be able to hold them out enough to see you win.
I know. We were talking about
interesting.
I know we were talking about Billy Turner as well.
Yeah,
I think what a game for him to come into to protect Rodgers against like the likes of Khalil Mack, who's going to be running at him. I think it'll be a big statement game for him. Hopefully, he'll be up for it to prove himself.
Yeah, probably one of the hardest, toughest tests to come as your first game, but maybe that might help him. Who knows?
Yeah.
So, we'll move on to the Lions now. Another team that has improved massively in this off-season, potentially having one of the best off-seasons so far. Obviously, that's just talk. It's about whether they can put it into action. But how do you think, kind of overall, the Lions will be? Do you think they'll compete at the top of your division, or do you still think they might need a bit more?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think the Lions won't win the division this year. Although there is always, what worries me is there's always a team who goes from bottom to top. Obviously, the Bears done it last year. They went from bottom to top. And, I mean, what worries me about the Lions most is they just seem to be our bogey team. We can just never beat them. Like, no matter what we do, we just always seem to lose to the Lions. Whether it's dodgy kicks or just not showing up or injuries, they just always seem to get one over with somehow. But
yeah, because there's a shocking game at the end, like last game of last season. I know there was nothing to play for at that point, but do you think that'll play on their minds at all, or do you think they'll just be put behind?
No, I almost think we lost that game on purpose, to be honest, because we got such a better because of losing that game. And I know the Lions, I sort of don't get why they tried so hard that game to win, because they sort of damaged massively where their pick was going to be. They could have really had an elite player, but I don't know. I mean, I sort of respect them for not losing on purpose and accepting defeat. But I don't know. I think sort of in the long run, it might be better just to maybe ignore that game, throw it away. But it's up to the Lions, I guess. And like you were saying, I think they're probably the team who's improved the most in this division. It's definitely between us two, but I'll probably just give it to them just because of how poor they were last year. And I think it was more important for them to make big additions than it was for us.
Yeah, well, they've made a lot of changes, brought in a lot of new people.
A lot of expatriates.
Which could definitely help a lot, because the Patriots always seem to know how to win. But do you think bringing in so many kind of new faces and changing a lot, do you think that could affect them? Because obviously they're coming into a new system and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think so, because I think in this league the squads are so big and everyone just seems to know each other. Like, I know, for example, I'm just picking an example off my head. I know Devontae Adams, he's training with a lot of the Raiders players at the minute, but he doesn't play for the Raiders, obviously. It's just everyone seems to just know each other. Yeah, everyone sort of respects each other, respects their game.
Yeah, kind of coming through college and that, it's all very closely linked, isn't it?
Yeah, and I know with the Lions, obviously their head coach is Matt Patricia. He was obviously the Patriots defensive coordinator up until 2 years ago, and obviously bringing in a lot of Patriots, they'll know him, and I think he'll sort of help them gel from the top. He'll just bring everyone together. Because even though last year didn't go ideal for him, I do still think he's a good head coach. And I do think he deserves to be have a head coaching job. But I don't know, it's a weird one for the Lions. I think they do sort of, I wouldn't say it's a big year for them where they need to show improvement, but
there might be a lot of expectation there.
I think this year they just sort of need to go out and show that they are getting better and they're getting somewhere.
Yeah, definitely.
A bit similar to sort of, I don't know, sort of how it's a weird one, because they weren't the worst team last year by any means, but they really they were going nowhere. It's just obviously a signing like Trey Flowers, him alone could really improve your season. Yeah. But it'll be an interesting one against the Lions. I mean, I hope we can beat them, because I'd say out of the 3 teams in our division, they're probably still seen as the worst.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I agree with that, yeah. Do you think, if there's kind of, what about the Lions team would you be most scared, or would be most threatening against the Packers, do you think?
I just think that's probably their D-line. I think our O-line hasn't improved that much yet, to the point where I have complete faith in it. And I just think sort of Trey Flowers running out our O-line, I just think he'd get the better of most of them. So I'd probably say that, just sort of the pressure that's going to be on Rodgers.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, you'll be ready for it and you'll expect that, but obviously you can never have a perfect game, so you're always going to make mistakes at sometimes.
Yeah, I think obviously Trey Flowers was one of the biggest signings of the off season so far, and in the podcast that we talked about the draft.
He was ranked.
Number one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it tells you all that you need to know that, really.
That'll be obviously something for Rodgers and the O-line to worry about as well.
Yeah, I also think Amendola's a very smart signing for them.
Yeah.
Maybe not one who's talked about too much, but I just think for years he just does a job. You know, he doesn't do anything flashy, but he'll just get you the first downs if you need them.
Yeah, I agree with you there. So then we'll move on to your last divisional rival, in the Minnesota Vikings. They've not done too much, I believe, in the off season.
No.
So far, but they've kind of been. They missed out just on playoffs last year. They've been kind of a playoff team in recent years. I'd say, but
NFC final season before.
Yeah, definitely. With that Diggs moment that you love so much.
Yeah, of course. Got onto you, Dig.
So, what's your kind of opinions on the Vikings this season? Do you think?
I honestly think the Vikings are getting worse.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
I think the Vikings. It wouldn't surprise me at all if the Lions had a better season than the Vikings, which I don't think many people would have even thought would have a chance of happening last year. But like you were saying, the Lions really haven't. Not the Lions. The Vikings haven't really added anyone of note. The only really big signing that they made was bringing back Anthony Barr, who looked like he was going to go to the Jets. But I mean, they already had him, so it's not too exciting for their fans. Just bringing back someone, but I also think Kirk Cousins doesn't warrant the money he's on at all.
Definitely, I think.
Is it $84 million?
It's something.
That's a joke.
Something crazy. It's I believe, he's obviously a good quarterback and he can potentially show something, but I think like a lot of people, he's been disappointing for the money he's on. Obviously, he's got a lot of quality, but it'll be interesting to see.
I just think their wide receivers bail him out so much.
Definitely, I think they've got. Well, I reckon. I rate Thielen as one of the better wide receivers.
I think being unbiased, best wide receiver duo in the league at the minute. I think the only one. I think maybe OBJ and Landry could overtake it if they sort of prove their worth. But I would say at the minute, I don't think you can look past Diggs and Thielen as the best sort of duo.
Yeah, definitely, I agree with you there. Do you think what part of the Vikings team do you believe could be crucial in kind of competing hard? It'll be interesting to see how that offense does, because obviously, Kirk Cousins has underperformed, you could say, a bit, or doesn't kind of warrant the money he's getting. Yeah,
I just think we've mentioned the secondary position so many times already today, but I think that's why we needed to improve it, because of games like this. I mean, definitely. I know when I'm going into this game now, I'm going to feel so much more confident having, maybe a rookie safety who's good, maybe a first or second round safety, as well as Amos right back there, sort of going up against Diggs and Thielen. I just feel so much more confident with that than what we had last year. I think that's what was sort of decided. Maybe them deep passes from the Vikings and how we can handle them, because that's what cost for last year, especially in the first game. I know Thielen just made some ridiculous catch to sort of save them towards the end, and then we drew in overtime. But that was so early on in the season. If we'd won that game, we could have really got some momentum going.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I think it'll be, as you mentioned earlier, I think this division will be potentially one of the closest.
I definitely think closest in the NFC for sure.
I think definitely the most unpredictable. I think any team could kind of shock and go kind of top, and any team could finish bottom. It'll be very interesting.
I mean, as a neutral, if you sort of had to put your neck on the line and predict the order now, who would you say?
I think it'll be very close. I still kind of believe the Bears might have enough, but I kind of think if the Packers if their new signings can make a big impact, I think they can definitely compete very closely. And obviously, that big game at the start of the season could be very kind of important into the season. I'm actually going to, if I was to predict it and put money on it, I'll just, for you, I'd put Packers first. And then Bears, then probably Vikings, and then Lions. I think it'll be very, very hard for the Lions to kind of make so much like kind of difference very quickly. I think they could easily finish. I don't think they'll finish top, but I think they could easily even finish second and kind of do well. But I think it'll be a very close decision.
I mean, obviously, I'm a fan of the Packers in this division, but I think if I was going to try and be as unbiased as possible and sort of assuming that no bad injuries happen to any of these teams or anything drastic happens, I agree with you. I think the Bears at the minute are the most quality team. They have the most quality in general all across the field.
Yeah, best quarterback.
I knew you were going to say that. I was setting up for that. There was an open goal tap in that. I think the Bears first, and then I'm going to say us second. I would love it. I would love it if we could get a wild card spot, but
I'd love it if we beat them.
I would love it if we beat them. No, but thing is, I'm looking at teams, and there's just so many people who could nick a wild card spot this year. So I don't want to go out and say we will get the wild card.
I think another thing is, even if the Packers don't make playoffs, I think it's just important you have kind of a positive season.
I think we just need to make sure that we have at least 8-8, in my opinion. Just show that we're not a losing team anymore.
Yeah. Also, I think you did mention your GM did say that it's like win now kind of mentality.
Well, it's like history, isn't it? We've just been a winning team through history. We just need to prove we're not digressing.
I think, as you said, it's important to have a winning kind of season, but I think kind of the fans and everyone that want the Packers just have to be kind of patient with it and just keep building, because I think with this team, even if you don't make playoffs with next year's kind of off season, you could really then improve your team to then fight and get into the playoffs, I believe.
Yeah,
because you've still got a good chance of doing it this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, we really have went for it this year, because I know next year we have nowhere near the cap now that we had this year because of the money that we've spent. We've sort of done the opposite to what the Colts are doing, which is don't spend a lot, save a lot for next year. We've just went all out and said, look, this year we're going for it, get the players that we need, and there you go. You've got the tools, now go.
Yeah, I think you guys did have to make kind of a big statement. I think anyone, even non-NFL fans, would say that the Packers are one of the biggest, if not the biggest, kind of NFL team, and they should really be a playoff team regularly. So it'll be good to see them back from the neutral.
I think from my personal experience before I got into the NFL, the big three was always sort of the Cowboys, the Patriots, and the Packers.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. Obviously, the Green Bay are probably the most the original kind of team and one of the most supported worldwide. So as I said, as from a neutral.
I mean, as me and Andrew discussed in the third episode of the podcast when we were looking at the NFL UK teams and which teams are most supported in the NFL in the UK, the Packers were second on that list. Yeah, it sort of surprised me how many UK fans we did have.
Yeah, I'm guessing the Patriots were top of that, weren't they?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot to do with how well they've been doing recently.
A few glory seekers who don't admit it.
Yeah, way too many of them actually. But I think as a neutral, I definitely want to see the Packers in playoffs. As annoying as that you will be probably talking about it all the time, but I mean,
I'm just going to try and enjoy it.
I definitely think it's going in the right direction in terms of with the other teams in the division. But if you were to give your 1, 2, 3, and 4 in that division, what would it be? Right now.
Probably quite surprising at the end, but I'd say Bears, Packers, Lions, and Vikings finish bottom.
Yeah, that could easily. Yeah, I agree with. I would.
I think the Vikings have an absolute mess of a season. I think everything goes wrong for them.
That's And another thing, obviously, could all change again with the draft. How well the draft goes for each team.
Yeah, but I just think the Vikings lost Sheldon Richardson even to like the Browns, and it's just little. Yeah. It doesn't seem like that big at the time, but I just think little signings like that, players who have been so good for them, and they're just sort of letting slide. I just don't really get it. But I mean, unless there's something behind the scenes, they have a plan worked out, or
we'll see.
Who knows? I guess we'll see.
That's the best thing about it. Can't tell what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then we'll move on out of the division and look at your home opponents for next season.
Yeah.
Which are the Panthers, Broncos, Raiders, Eagles, and Redskins. Overall, I think that is quite a nice kind of
I'm happy with most of
them. We'll start off with the Panthers. What's your kind of thoughts on that game?
The Panthers is a weird one because I think they're probably one of the teams who are sort of at a crossroads this season where they could get worse or do better. Like we don't really know which way it's going to go. Whereas like I think with our division, you know the Lions are going to do better. You know we're going to do better. But I just look at that Panthers team and they've sort of like who's went out. They've sort of equaled the quality coming back in. So they could have a very similar season to last year. To be honest, I know they went on that horrendous run towards the end where they lost so many games in a row. I know on his day, you probably can't get a quarterback who's as dangerous as Cam Newton. Obviously, that sort of dual threat that he has of running and his throwing power. But I'd fancy we against the Panthers. I think especially at home. I think whenever we're at home, we always have a chance. We proved that last year. We pretty much won all the home games except 2. And then we drew with the Vikings as well. And then I don't know. We just sort of. I just think our support's so like it makes such a big difference at home. I'd always sort of fancy ourselves in these sort of games where we're slight favourites.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
The Panthers. I do think we can beat the Panthers. If you had to ask us for a prediction, I would say we'll beat the Panthers.
I think at Lambeau Field, I think you'll definitely be the favourites in this game. I personally think the Panthers might have a poor season this year. Definitely kind of went bad towards the end of last season. So
they're in probably one of the most lopsided divisions in comparison. I think everyone already knows who's winning that division.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So I'd say you're definitely favourites right now if I was to look at it, but obviously so much can still change.
Yeah.
Another game I'd see you as favourites in would be the Broncos.
Yeah. This one I'm a bit more unsure about because it's Vic Fangio, who was the Bears defensive coordinator, coming back. And as much as I think that Denver Broncos offense doesn't have much, except, Philip Lindsay had an incredible year as an undrafted running back last year. But I do, we've been improving our D-line and linebackers and stuff like that. So I fancy ourselves against their offense, but I just think I know how good he is as a defensive coordinator, and the fact that he's now a head coach, I think he deserves to get a head coach job. And I do think I'm particularly worried about Von Miller, and I think we're going to have to handle him because obviously on any given day he's going to show up. But I don't know. I just think with Vic Fangio behind him as well, I just think it's going to be a lot better. This sort of Panthers defense as a whole. So that's probably what concerns me most about this, just how we adapt to playing against that defense.
And you were kind of to look at the game as if it was happening kind of today. Who would, what would your prediction be?
I think it would be a low-scoring game. I think it would be a lot of punting because I think both defenses hopefully will be quite good. And I think we're going to get quite a few stops on both ends. And I'd like to say Rodgers, being his usual self, clutches up in the fourth quarter. And we win we win like 14 to 12 or something. I don't know.
That would be a very good game when that happened, to be fair.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think looking at it now, I'll probably say you guys are
I'll say we win 13 to 10 if I had to make a prediction.
I'd say you're the better looking team right now, but I think it could.
I do think that'll be a close game because they're probably
the low scoring.
Their sort of defense is what is maybe our sort of Achilles heel at the minute. Just anyone who can pretty much put pressure on, because I I just think our O-line needs so much more work still than what is currently is at the minute. I think that's what a lot of teams will be looking to target this year, and I think the Broncos, especially with the players they have on that D line, will fancy themselves.
Yeah, and then we're moving on to the next game. A team that's kind of unsure how well they're going to do next year, and the Raiders. Obviously bringing in Antonio Brown with one of the main kind of talking points of the off season.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on the Raiders, and do you think they're...
Well, if I could choose when we were to play this game, I would put these in like the last 3 games of the season when we play the Raiders at home. Because personally, I think the Raiders, there's a lot of hype around them at the minute. You were just mentioning Brown, and they've made a few other signings, and everyone's so excited about like how this is going to go. But I have a weird feeling this hype could die up pretty quickly, as well as like the actual strength of this team. I just sort of think the excitement will carry them through the first few weeks, and Brown will maybe get a few highlight catches, some touchdowns. Everything will be like, good, like nice and happy. But I think sort of reality will hit, like Derek Carr isn't quite the quarterback that Ben Roethlisberger was, and the rest of the team isn't quite as good as what Pittsburgh was. And I think Brown's numbers will probably go down. And I don't know. I just, as much as I do think the Raiders will improve, don't get us wrong, from what they were last year, but I think if we get them towards the end of the season, I think it should be a pretty standard win against a team of their current quality compared to ours.
Yeah, I believe that. I don't think they're going to have too good a season, I think.
Yeah, but I do think if we got them early on, like I was mentioning, I think a lot of the hype and excitement might carry them a bit. Although hopefully our sort of support could combat that. But I know some players rise to the occasion in atmospheres like that, so I definitely think this game quite more than most, probably the most out of all these games, depends on when we get them in the season.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. I think it's kind of unsure kind of what impact Brown will have, because obviously not only adding one of the best wide receivers in the game, but also kind of the hype around the place, like the team, could also impact other players and make other players kind of perform better.
Yeah.
So I think they're definitely one of the teams that I kind of want to watch, as in don't know too much what's going to happen.
I think they'll be an exciting team to watch. But I don't know. I just think they're still lacking some pot. But then at the same time, they still have their 3 first-round picks this year. If they use all them picks wisely, then it could be a completely different story.
Yeah, draft picks can change so much, I think.
Especially 3 first-rounders. I mean, you could really do a lot with that.
Yeah, so it's very important that they pick the right players, because I think like a draft can be so important. I think taking the Colts, for example, last year, some of our rookies played the biggest part in us making playoffs.
I was just think as well, rookies in general, everyone wants to root for a rookie, because it's like if a rookie has a good season, it's like everyone's so much more impressed than a player who's been in the league for like 5 years or something. So everyone just gets behind their rookie.
Gives a lot of hope kind of going forward as well.
Yeah, hope for the future. So if the Raiders get a home run with all 3 of their first round picks, then it could be a completely different story.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's so important to the Raiders season. This is their opportunity to get 3 very talented players, so they can do it right and get the players. Then it could really change their season. I still think going into this game, I still see you as the better team. I still think they need to improve a lot, but it'll be interesting to see how they get on. Kind of looking at it now, say they were to bring in 3 kind of impact first rounders, how would you see this game going?
If they got 3 first rounders who'd all done well and had a good season, I would definitely be more worried going into this. But I mean, I do think we have the quality on them to beat them no matter what. I think if our defense shows up, because I think everyone knows our offense is there. It's been there for years. Adams, Jones is a good running back. Rodgers. That maybe if we'd get another wide receiver, that would shore it up. a tight end as well. I just think that offense could be so explosive next year if we really work on it. And I think as long as our defense shows up, I think we can cover Brown. I trust Amos to cover Brown. I just think that would probably be the difference, just the matchups on the field. Even if they've got like really good rookies, I just think we should really. There's no excuses. We really should have the quality on them.
Yeah. Okay, so then moving on to your next opponent, the Super Bowl 52 champions, the Eagles.
Yep.
I'd say outside of your division, or I'd say actually outside of the Bears, I'd say this is your hardest game at home.
Yep, I definitely agree.
What's your kind of opinions on the Eagles this season? Like upcoming, do you think they'll be a threat against you guys?
Yeah, I think, like you said, this is definitely our hardest game outside of the Bears, in my opinion. And I think that the Eagles haven't lost any of their good players, and they've added Jackson, a wide receiver, who's really good. They've added I saw them add a really good defensive player as well. I can't remember his name now, but it's just sort of filling not too many gaps, because there wasn't too many gaps to start with. They're a playoff team, the Eagles. They got playoffs last year, and I think the only thing that would worry Eagles fans maybe is, was it the right decision to let go of Foles? I think that's probably the only question mark over the Eagles season, because if Wentz maybe doesn't deliver as well as what I hope, or even what we've seen in the last few years, Wentz gets injured, who do they look to? Because you don't have that starting caliber quarterback ready to go, is what you did with Foles. You're gonna have. I mean, I don't even, who even is the Eagles like backup quarterback now. I'm not even sure.
I couldn't tell you.
Exactly. So but everyone knew Nick Foles. He was like the best backup quarterback in the league.
Yeah, definitely.
So I just
we all
think
know what he did.
especially if we get the Eagles later on, if Wentz is injured, then I would fancy ourselves definitely against them.
Yeah, I think this will be a very close game. I think.
Yeah.
Looking at both like rosters, I believe they are quite kind of similar in ability-wise, quality. So I think this could be a very kind of close game. If you were to make kind of a prediction on the game, what do you think would happen at this moment in time before the draft?
I'm going to assume that Wentz is fit for this game, because he does make a huge difference, probably the biggest difference.
Definitely, 100%.
And I honestly just think this game, like you say, is so close. I think it's just so hard to call. Could literally be 50-50. It depends. You know how I was mentioning before about sort of the wild card situation, if we were to finish second. I also think the Eagles finish second in their division. So I think if this game, especially, is towards the end of the season, the winner of this could maybe get the wild card. So there's just like so much on this game.
Yeah, definitely. I think if this game came kind of late on in the season, you could look at it as a prime time game.
I think the NFL might put this towards the end on purpose for that reason.
Definitely. Who knows? It could even be like kind of the Colts against Titans, like winner takes all, kind of.
Yeah.
At the end of the season, who knows? That would be something I'd like to see.
Yeah, that
probably
would be
something
good.
You wouldn't like to see, because when you're involved, it's not like fun. But yeah, I believe this could be a very close game. I think definitely you're kind of, as we were talking about, I'd say these and the Bears are definitely the hardest games.
Yeah. I think in some ways this could be harder than the Bears, because we know the Bears so well.
Yeah, definitely.
Whereas we haven't played the Eagles in such a long time. So I just hope that we're ready for what they have.
Yeah. It'll be very interesting. I believe that Wentz could make the difference in this game, because obviously the last couple of seasons Wentz has had problems with injury.
Yeah.
They also had the backup to come in, obviously, in Foles.
Yeah.
They don't have that now, so...
In my opinion, the Eagles' biggest weakness last season was their running game. and they've just signed Jordan Howard from the Bears, who was the Bears' starting running back for quite a long time. That's a huge addition for the Eagles because now they don't just rely on Wentz's passing ability. They do have a running game to back it up as well. And I also think for us, we haven't really mentioned it yet, but I think this is such a huge season for Aaron Jones. I think this is sort of the season where it's really decided whether he is our franchise running back or not.
Yeah, I think he's got a lot to play for as well.
Because everyone knows the ability is there. It's just his injury problems, his sort of discipline. There's a few question marks there. So don't know. I hope he has a good season. Obviously.
Yeah, I agree with you. Then moving on to your last game at home in the Redskins. I believe. What's your opinion on this one
then? Obviously we took Smith from the Redskins, and I think he was probably one of their best defensive players last year. So hopefully he goes back and proves that they shouldn't have let him go. Hopefully he'll be up for that. But I think probably the only notable free agent signing that I can think of for the Redskins was obviously the really big one where they signed Collins from the Giants. But I think just adding him isn't good enough. I think the Redskins are one of those teams who really, really need a mix-up at the minute.
Yeah,
I especially think that quarterback situation's very questionable. I mean, like Smith or Keenum, or do they draft someone? Or there's a lot of question marks there. So I would like to get the Redskins earlier on, while those question marks are still there, rather than later in the season when they've been answered.
So if you looked at this game right now, would you say you were kind of big favourites? Because that's kind of what I believe. I think definitely one.
I think out of all our home games, this on paper is the easiest one.
Yeah, definitely. But then obviously, who knows what could happen?
Yeah.
Kind of sticking with Landon Collins. Like looking at your road opponents, one of them is the Giants, which I would say.
I think this is probably the easiest game on paper of the whole season.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry to Adam. Shout out Adam. But I think the Giants are looking at a very poor season ahead of them.
I think the Giants
possibly
are purposely going to have a bad season.
Yeah, I could see them being number one draft.
They're set up for a tanking season, fully.
They're set up for the 2020 official first round pick.
Yeah. They're set up for that first round quarterback next year.
Yeah. So I definitely see this as the kind of easiest game on paper. I don't believe the Giants are going to surprise anyone. I don't think they've got anything to show that.
Well, I think everyone knows that it's just going to watch Barkley. Just watch him.
Yeah, I think Barkley's going to carry that team. And
I sort of feel sorry for Barkley next year because he's just going to be targeted so much.
Yeah, I feel very sorry for him because right now
it's like there's so much pressure on him for next season now.
Yeah, it's also there's not looking very promising for the Giants, as if I don't see them really challenging soon. I think they'll have to make a lot of changes, and to be a running back of that quality, you want to see him in playoffs and in the biggest games.
So wait, are you saying you'd like to see Barkley leave the Giants?
No. Well, obviously.
Imagine as a listener.
Imagine, yeah. No, more just I feel sorry for him. I feel.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him in playoffs. Obviously, being with the Giants. Because I definitely don't see him leaving after what's happened. But I don't necessarily think he should leave.
God, New York would just melt down if Barkley left.
They'd all become Jet fans.
Yeah.
No, I don't think he should leave. But I mean, I just feel a bit sorry for him because he's such a talented player.
Well, the reason I'd say, I don't know if feeling sorry for him is the right word, because he's going to be getting so much of the ball, which he probably wants. But it's just teams are just going to know what's coming. Like, teams are just going to look at Barkley and go, if we can stop Barkley, there's a 90% chance that we win this game. Unless, on the odd occasion, Golden Tate's going to have the game of his career and get 2 touchdowns or so. But for the majority of the time, if you can stop Barkley, you're probably going to stop that New York team.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I definitely, kind of looking at it now, I think you'd agree with me. It's one you definitely should win, and probably
Yeah, we should win.
that's
And I think we will be big favourites for it.
It's one right now. I think is the one I'd be most sure of you winning. But I mean, who knows?
I don't want to jinx anything, so I'm not going to say that.
Touch wood. But
yeah,
looking, I'd say at another kind of one that I would see you as favourites in away from home would be against the 49ers.
mm-hmm.
And what's your opinion on that game?
The 49ers have had a very, very good off-season, and they could have a very good draft with the picks that they have. Mm-hmm. But I do think they need more than a year to get the playoff level. I like the signing of D Ford. You know, I like the running backs that they've added, like Coleman. I like everyone thought they were going to get Antonio Brown, but they could have. Well, time will tell. But they could have dodged a bullet there by not signing him.
Yeah,
I think Kittle's going to have a huge year. I think he could be San Fran's best player.
Yeah, definitely.
I think same as previous years, and same as the Eagles. I just think can Garoppolo stay fit for the full season?
Yeah,
that's the biggest question mark again for this team. Same as the Eagles.
If Garoppolo is fit for the game, do you see him as being a big threat against your defense?
If Garoppolo's fit and every one of their offensive players are on it, then I think this is a lot closer game than what most people think. Because we always, for some reason, we've always struggled against like big tight ends. Mm-hmm. And I just think someone like Kittle will sort of have a really good game against us. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think this could be a very, very close game.
Yeah, well, luckily for you, talking about like struggling against big tight ends, you've not come up against
Eric Ebron.
Yeah, for the culture. So I mean, just wait for that.
That's in 2020. Don't worry.
Yeah, that's in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. yeah. We'll see. We'll see you in February.
No, but I'd say right now I'd look at you as the better team, but obviously Garoppolo and Kittle are two very good players. Could be a big worry for you if you were to kind of predict this game like the others at this point in time before the draft.
Yeah.
Would you say you were the better team, or would you say it'd be a close game?
At the minute, we are the better team on paper, but I just think the sort of components that they have could easily beat us on any like I said, if their offense is playing well, then there's no reason why they can't beat us. And on the other side as well, on their defense, I know a lot of mock drafts have the 49ers taking Nick Bosa, who would, in most people's minds, he's the best player in this draft.
Yeah, well, before the kind of hype around Kyler Murray,
he was everyone's number one.
Yeah, I still believe he could be. It just depends. It does actually look like the Cardinals will take Murray, though.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's very...
Very, yeah. There's a lot of...
it's very good.
A lot of speculation there. I think if he gets drafted by the 49ers and he has a really good year, then he's maybe someone that worries me again. Like I say, coming back to the O-line, our O-line just doesn't really convince me still. And I think if he's proved himself from the off, then he probably is better than some of our O-linemen.
Mm-hmm.
So that's maybe like a matchup to look out for in that game.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Okay, then moving on to your last three games, which I think are the three hardest.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I'd say with the Bears, these three are very difficult.
Yeah.
Three, obviously, I'd say kind of Super Bowl contenders. Probably the least of them would be the Cowboys, even though I do think they could easily find their way competing. I think the Cowboys are looking stronger and stronger now. I think they are in for a strong year. I'd say they would be the favourites against you at this moment in time. Obviously,
I'd agree.
Who knows with the season? But what's your kind of opinion on this game?
I think the biggest difference maker on this game is the Cowboys are going to be so up for this game because Rodgers is just so infamous for absolutely destroying them at their stadium.
Mm-hmm.
And each time they just keep saying, we can't let it happen again. We can't let it happen again. And he just keeps doing it. And it must just be annoying them so much that I just think this year they're going to be like, right, this is the year. We've got the best team. We've got to do it this year. Just stop him beating us at this stadium.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's why I think if I was putting a bet on, I'd probably have them narrowly beating us.
Mm-hmm.
Because I just think that sort of drive to make sure that this doesn't keep repeating itself, where Rodgers just keeps doing them in their own stadium.
Mm-hmm.
They're just going to try so hard this game.
Yeah, I think this is definitely one of the games, one of your fixtures that I look forward to most.
Yeah,
and I think it could be
it's always a good game when we played the Cowboys. To be fair,
it could be a very interesting game. Both. Well, I think the Cowboys have a very strong squad, as I've mentioned. So I'd say, do you think it could be high scoring? I think it'll be a very exciting game no matter what happens.
Two very good offenses.
Yeah.
Randall Cobb against his old team. That'll be interesting to look out for. I don't know. I mean, Zeke is a very good running back. He would worry me that game.
Yeah.
Although I do think our blocking's a lot better now. Sort of our tackling against running backs as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think also, Dak Prescott, I think he's a quarterback that I see a lot of talent in, but I think he's not really shown it. I think
a lot of people say he's like, not that good. I think he's better than quite a few quarterbacks in the league. I would say he's an average quarterback. I think obviously I wouldn't put him anywhere near the elite yet.
Oh no, definitely not. He needs to show it.
I don't even think. I don't even think he breaks into like top 10 yet. He's probably just that middle of the pack.
I think he's close to the top 10. I think he's definitely ability-wise could be top 10.
It's just ability-wise, I would probably put him on the same level as like Kirk Cousins and Garoppolo and quarterbacks like that.
Yeah, I think he could. If I was to predict it, I'd be like, I want him to have as in for a player like him. I think he had a lot of quality coming out of college and stuff. He's a player that I think could have a season where he could find his kind of form.
Yeah,
and especially they've got, I think, good receivers there. But it's just whether he can find that. I think he's got the quality. It's just about showing it, which I don't believe he's been able to do.
Yeah,
I think he's got a lot more to come.
I think, like you said as well, we're probably playing the Cowboys at a bad time because this is sort of like seen as the year for them. Like, they made the playoffs last year. This is the push year where they go further and see how far they really can go.
Yeah, I definitely think.
And I think for them not to make the playoffs this year will be such a huge disappointment.
Well, definitely. That will be a massive failure of a season, I think. I think they definitely could compete with the best teams.
I think they should be going into every game, no matter who they're playing, thinking that they can win it.
I think they should be going into the season with realistic ambitions of going the whole way. Obviously, not obviously. I don't think they're favourites.
That's got to be the aim. Yeah,
has to be the aim, especially realistically as well. Two other teams that are going for the Super Bowl, in my opinion, like the Chargers and the Chiefs. We'll start with the Chargers.
Yep.
Had a very good season last year. Predicted to have a very good season this year. I think this is a very, very difficult game for you guys. What's your kind of opinion on it?
I think the Chargers are probably the most. They probably had the most underrated free agency out of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
They made some really, really top signings. I mean, Philip Rivers is getting on. They made sure that they have someone to back him up in Tyrod Taylor if the worst happens.
Yeah.
They brought back everyone that they needed to bring back. They just brought in solid, cheap players that to get the job done, have experience. I don't want to say veterans, but they've played in the league for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would not surprise me at all if the Chargers top this division instead of the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think it'll be like last year. It could even have the same record as well.
Yeah. I definitely think they'll be the favourites for this game. I think that's definitely safe to say. Their team's just so good, like all over the field.
Mm-hmm.
And I particularly worry about. I think they're probably going to put like against Adams. They'll probably put Derwin James, and I don't know. They just have stars all over the place. The Chargers,
I think
this
definitely.
team's just, it feels like sort of out of nowhere. It's just like came up all at once. Like all the players have just hit top form.
I think it definitely looks like one of the best, well-rounded teams and strongest teams going into the new season.
Yeah.
Definitely one of the favourites for the Super Bowl.
I know we haven't mentioned it yet. The Chiefs as well last road game after this. I'm more scared of the Chargers than the Chiefs. I think they have a better chance of beating the Chiefs.
Okay, yeah.
Just because I think the Chiefs' sort of play style is more what we're good against, that we're good at playing against.
Yeah, well, looking at the Chargers right now, how would you kind of predict the game if it was happening today?
I would say I think this has the potential to be our biggest loss of the season purely because of their style.
Yeah.
I just think, I don't know, they just play very well, very efficient. Philip Rivers, for me, has always been one of the most underrated quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but it really disappoints me that he never got a ring because I think he definitely deserves one.
Yeah, who knows? Could happen this year.
Yeah, it could happen. I'd love it if it did happen.
Yeah,
I think
I do like the Chargers. Some good fantasy players for me.
Obviously, except sort of Green Bay and a few other like second teams, and I don't know if you made
Like
it, I'd probably back you as well. Yeah, and at the Giants ain't making it, but yeah, if they made it somehow, then. But I'd like to say that if the Chargers are against like, I don't know, just some random AFC team, I'd obviously like to see the Chargers push on, get to the Super Bowl, and hopefully win it.
Yeah, definitely for me after the Colts. Chargers
I think
would be one of my favourite teams to win.
I think this would be quite a good debate, but I would even say the Chargers are the better LA team now.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. I kind of agree with that as well.
Because weirdly, I think the Rams will sort of have a down year than what they had last year.
Yeah, I believe that the Chargers might have a better record next year.
Yeah.
Still, I think the Rams will still be very strong again.
Yeah, the Rams will still win their division.
Yeah. So, yeah, and then the other team in the Chargers division being the Chiefs. I'd say the Chiefs are the favourites for a lot of people for the whole thing.
Yeah. Weirdly, though, you know when I had Andy on?
Yeah.
Andy said he would be happy just to make playoffs.
Really?
So Andy isn't expecting much this season. I don't know about the rest of the Chiefs fans, but Andy's just hoping for playoffs.
Andy, if you listen to this, I disagree with you massively. I think there's almost a guaranteed wild card coming from this division, really.
Yeah,
I think it'd be
same as last year.
Massive disappointment if one of these teams didn't make it. I think the Chiefs are possibly one of the strongest teams going into this year. They've got a lot to kind of take forward from last season. A lot of promising things. They were unlucky in losing in the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
Definitely when the Colts played them, they were definitely the team I was like. Although the Colts didn't play well, I think that was down to how well they played against us.
Yeah.
And I think they can definitely replicate it. Personally, I think this will be your hardest game. I think it can go, for me, it can go two ways. I think it could be a high-scoring game, and it could be very close. If you guys were to win, I'd see it being like a high-scoring, close game. Or I think, as you said, the Chargers might be. I could see this being one of your biggest losses, but obviously anything can happen on the day. What's your kind of thoughts on it?
I think with the Chiefs, the one thing you have to do is avoid a shootout.
Yeah.
You were saying this could be a high-scoring game. I think that's the one thing we need to avoid. You cannot get in a shootout with the Chiefs because they're 9 times out of 10 they're going to outscore you.
Yeah, because they've just got so much going kind of forward. Such an exciting, quick offense.
I just think the most important thing this game is just getting on Mahomes and just putting as much pressure on as we can. I think last year Mahomes done so well because no one really knew what he was like.
Yeah,
but everyone's done their homework on him over the last year, and I don't think he'll have as good a year as last year.
Yeah, a lot of pressure as well, being MVP.
To
come back and kind of replicate that, I don't think he'll do the same.
But like this tape, obviously people can watch tape on him now and different things like that, whereas they couldn't last year. So I think that will make a big difference in sort of the season he has.
Yeah, I think also you can never, though teams will understand never to take their kind of eye off him because so many times you'd think the lineman got to him. there was a sacking coming and somehow pull out a throw out of nowhere.
Yeah, towards the end of last season, he was just taking the mick. He was doing like no look passes and that. So
yeah, so it'll be very interesting. So like,
I think with the Chiefs, they made some very questionable defensive moves. Obviously, you picked up Justin Houston from them.
That was a big loss for them.
They got rid of Eric Berry.
Yeah.
They brought in Tyrann Mathieu, but they also got rid of Dee Ford. So really, they got rid of like 3 of their top defensive players and only brought in Tyrann Mathieu.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs, obviously I think we'd all agree their weakness is their defense. There was kind of many times I thought that they got into kind of the shootout last season.
I would
their
agree.
Offense had to bail them out a bit.
I would agree, but I think Chris Jones, you could argue, is the best player in NFL history.
MVP.
And that scares me that we have to come up against such greatness like him.
Yeah. I mean, future Hall of Famer easily.
Yeah.
Down in the history. I'll be telling my grandkids about him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to watch this game so I can tell future generations about what Chris Jones was like.
What Chris Jones did.
Yeah, about that night in Kansas, Istanbul.
Well, it's not even in Kansas, really, is it?
That night in Missouri, Istanbul.
For people who don't know, inside joke. With Chris Jones.
Yeah. Yeah, the people, like random people watching.
We don't actually.
Is Chris Jones really that good?
We're not going to be telling our grandparents about Chris Jones. Well,
no,
unless something.
I mean,
happens,
someone we know might be doing that, but
yeah, no. I mean, we might be telling our grandkids about the story of how someone did think that he was MVP last year, but you know.
Yeah, I just can't wait to tell my grandkids about how we managed to get someone to switch from the Cardinals to the Chiefs with a few fake tweets.
Yeah, if you need help with pranking your friend, just call us.
Yeah, just email me at vengacast@gmail.com and I'll be sure to respond to you with any tips and any help.
Going back to the Chiefs, well, we're still on the Chiefs, but I mean, if you were looking at this game, right now, what do you think would happen?
Like I was saying, I think you've got to avoid a shootout, but in some ways it's almost inevitable when you play these. I can't remember any games last season where the Chiefs were limited to... I think that up until they played the Patriots, I think they'd scored in every game before halftime.
Mm-hmm.
So I think sometimes it's inevitable. I'm just wondering whether they can replicate that offensive success from last year. I think it's the same sort of question marks on like the Bears defense, whereas like can they repeat that? Because quite often you don't repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we're to win this, we keep this low scoring and we just try and be as efficient as possible on offense and let the defense just do their job. But I do think we'll lose, being realistic about it. And I do think they'll beat us by maybe 2 scores.
Yeah.
I would say they probably score in the 30s and we get low 20s or something.
I think one thing that would be very important in this game would be kind of the way Rodgers kind of plays his game. I think if he can if your kind of drives can take time and be patient with it and kind of slow down the game a bit and kind of take longer on the ball.
I definitely agree with that. Our time management's going to be huge in this game.
Yeah, because I think the Chiefs want it to be quick because
the Chief offense. I remember watching that Patriots game. The drives they were going on were like 2 minutes and that.
It was against,
crazy.
Against Colts in the playoffs. It was just crazy how quick it was.
Yeah, they just get down the field. So I agree with you. I think we do need to just take our time when we get the ball. Make sure we give them as little time as possible on offense.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think it's also making use of every attack because they certainly will on their side, I think.
Yeah.
So that's all the fixtures looked at. Looking at this season in general, what kind of record would you predict at this moment in time? What would your bets be on?
I'm going to go realistic and a record I'd be happy with as well, and I'll say 9-7.
Okay. If I'm looking at me, I think your home form's going to be a lot better. I think you'll lose a lot more of the away ones. If I was to predict now, I'd say 10-6 actually.
Yeah, I
So I
think
think
those three we went through at the end, I think we'll lose all of them, to be honest.
I think the home games are all very winnable. I think if you can create or if you can
Make Lambeau
Lambeau
a
Field,
fortress.
yeah, if you can do that, I think all the home games are very winnable.
Yeah.
And I think you could be looking at each game at home with a very good chance in winning, whereas I think the road might be a bit harder, or a lot harder. I think all divisional teams and the three teams that we mentioned at the end are all very difficult.
One thing we definitely need to improve on from last season, and I do think we will do this, we need to improve on with divisional games. We only won one divisional game last year, which is embarrassing. So, and the thing is, when you lose a divisional game, the other divisional team is gaining.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you're competing with those teams, that's literally the last team you want to give points to and wins to. So we need to scrap that. We need to really fix that this year.
Yeah,
but I have faith in Big Matt LaFleur that he can do that.
Yeah. So I think overall, definitely a very promising season. And I don't think not making playoffs is going to be a failure. I still think it can be a success, even if you don't make playoffs, with kind of looking forward.
Yep, I agree. I think this year I'm more than happy if we miss out, if it means benefiting in the long term.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot to look forward to. I think definitely going in the right direction, which needs to be happening there, I think. So as I've mentioned, as a neutral, I think Packers have to be competing at the top.
Yeah.
After a few disappointing seasons as well.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else you want to add on?
No, I mean, I'll just mention just about the podcast in general. We're now on YouTube as well. So make sure to go on YouTube and watch the videos and like and subscribe.
Yeah, comment as well with future ideas.
Yeah, of course.
And I guess thank you for listening. I think this is a very interesting insight into the Packers season.
Mm-hmm.
And I look forward to seeing what will happen, because I think a big change could happen.
Yeah.
So is that anything you want to add?
No, I think we've covered pretty much everything.
Yep. Well, thank you for listening.
Yeah, thanks for hosting.
Thank you for giving me this great opportunity and this honour.
It's like work experience.
Proudest moment of my life so far. I'm very honoured to host it. I hope I did okay.
Yep, smashed it.
And as Joe said, watch this on all platforms.
Yep, share it with your mates, your mum, your dad, your sister, your brother.
Tell your grandkids about it.
Of course, yep. Everyone who you know, just tell them about this.
Yeah, and if they're not interested, just tell them about Chris Jones. And no, but thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time I'm on.
See you later.